The weekly message of the United Church of Christ of Homelstown, Pennsylvania, a podcast version of our worship service. To learn more and listen to the rest of the worship, check us out online at homelstownucc.org.
This week, we include the last bit of our prophecy stories and our lead up to Christmas Eve, which is also today. So there isn't a lot of time left to dwell on this next story, reminding us of God's presence in the world. As we ponder on this story today, we remind ourselves just how different this story is from what we have in the other gospel, the one whose tale has made up the bulk of the pageant story. A friend posted this meme that I have for you, and yes, I know you can't see it from back there. You go to Pulpit Cam, the people online can at least see it. Oh, no, we can't do that one. Don't do that one then. So you can come see it after church. But here it is, this Venn diagram of the Christmas stories. You have Matthew and Luke, and shuttled off over here is John with the phrase complex stuff about the word and light and things. And this one down here says standard nativity play. So obviously there's parallels in between them. There's places where Luke and Matthew, not John, forget John. Luke and Matthew do have some correlations, and they do have some correlations with the normal, traditional, standard nativity play, like angels, Bethlehem, Jesus' birth, call him Jesus. These are the things that all three of those things have in common. Though this whole section over here, that's reserved for donkeys. That's what's not in Matthew or in Luke or in John. It's just in our nativity play is donkeys, which was also in our baking. So apparently donkeys really are the thing that we think about at this time of the year at church. Maybe it's because they bookend the life story. Maybe it's just because they're funny and entertaining. But the actual theological pieces of this diagram are spot on in the differences between the two Gospels and how they tell the story. What I found interesting about this diagram, though, is that part of this part, the Matthew part, that isn't included in the standard nativity play is Joseph and Joseph's dream. So we're just going to have to change that today, aren't we? So let's return one last time to our little nativity play of Chris and Holly and all the people that keep coming up to them. I'm so glad that I understand now that when I get overwhelmed and worried, I need to remember to listen for God's good news. I don't have to figure everything out all by myself. God's love is for me and for us all. That's great news, Chris. I've learned that a herald can be anyone bringing the good news. We can listen for them in the Bible, in history, and in the world today. I think that's right. Who's a herald of good news for you, Holly? What about the story of Joseph learning about Jesus to be born? A herald was needed to help him stay in Mary's life, right? He was planning to do the right thing and release her from her engagement. Oh yeah, let's look that one up. Hey, Angel Anonymous, your story's up. Get ready. Sweet! I love the bit about me coming to Joseph through his dreams. He was so shocked that God flipped the script on what it meant to be honorable. This is my little hammer. Good little Joseph the carpenter. Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this will take place to fulfill what has been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. Look, the woman shall become pregnant and give birth to a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. Oh, well, that was a surprising dream, but I will support and protect Mary and the child as best I can. Ah, yes, says Chris, I remember now. A herald certainly doesn't always tell us what we expect to hear, do they? Yeah, I wonder what other heralds might tell us now. Herald, announce the heralds. Hark! To Malala Yousafzai, Nobel Peace Prize winner, herald of our faith. One child, one teacher, one pen, one book can change the world. Hark! To Lupita Nyong'o, herald of our faith. What I have learned is that I don't have to be anybody else, that myself is good enough, and that when I am being true to that self, then I can avail myself of extraordinary things. You have to allow for the impossible to be possible. Hark! To Greta Thunberg, climate activist, herald of our faith. When I'm taking action, I don't feel like I am helpless and that things are hopeless, because then I feel like I'm doing everything I can, and that gives me very much hope, especially to see that all of the other people around the world who are taking action, who are fighting for their present and their future. Holly, these are some beautiful heralds. They're reminding us that there is a lot to be hopeful for. When I'm feeling down, I will remember to hark, to listen and focus on God's good news, which they've all shared with us. When we're feeling down, we might need to remind ourselves that God's love is born anew. I wonder who the next herald will be. Maybe it's going to be the shepherds, or how about the magi? Maybe it could even be an angel. Hark to Chris, herald of our faith. Me? Wait, me? Okay, well, let me see. Favorite Bible verse of the Advent season. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Through God all things were made. In that was life, and that life was light of all humanity. Light shines in darkness, and darkness has not overcome it. We all need heralds to remind us of the love of Christ, born as a baby in a manger and alive among us today. If you hark the heralds of our faith, you'll find comfort and love and even challenge when you need it. And you never know when God could call you to be the herald of good news. And so the final curtain pulls closed, and applause, applause, applause! Thank you, thank you, thank you. My acting career is over. Okay, full disclosure, Joseph still wasn't a part of this play either. I included him for us, myself. And although he gets left out often, or maybe even mostly, he is an important figure for this story that tells us about hope and love. Because as Matthew goes through one of those massive genealogy downloads, the ones that start with, these are all of the generations that led to the birth of Jesus, who was to be the Messiah, meaning the promised deliverer of the Jewish nation, prophesied in the Hebrew Bible. They expected him to be from the lineage of David, King David. So it is Joseph, son of David, that is the one we hear descended from him. It's to Joseph's home country in the land of David that the couple will travel with Mary heavily pregnant. So if that's the case, doesn't that mean that Joseph, the adoptive parent in this family triad, is the person who provides the credentials for the royal child? As the non-childbearing partner in my family, the story of Joseph has become one that will connect with me as well, and may be part of why I feel like this inclusion is needed in this moment of modern life. Adoption and complex families of choice are given a divine veneration here in this heralding story. Mary, who puts her own body and health at risk, must consent to the path she will walk. But Joseph, too, needs to be thoughtful about all the responsibilities he is needed to take on to support Mary and this baby to be. God needs Joseph to show up for this child. God needs Joseph to claim him as his own. Because families are not just made by genetics, but by the trust and attention you put into those near you every single day. Having kids, well, a holy kid, isn't the only important point in these birth narratives. It's crucial that we see that the family gets invested in the business of building a family, of becoming a safe and healthy place for this child to grow and to learn. It's from these parents that he will learn the words of the faith story that will define his later life. And this is the case for all people. Our script has invited us into this journey to know what it means to hark, to listen for God's voice in the likely and unlikeliest of places, because that is where God will show up, in the traditional paths and the startlingly uncommon. The parents, the family, the community of each individual helps to build them into the people they will become. For some, that family of origin isn't as invested as Joseph, who dreams of supporting his child, or Mary, who commits in angelic voice to motherhood in the middle of the night, and who is greeted by cousin as she bears good news. For others, that wasn't the kind of support given as by those who raised you. And for those who have families of balance and peace, and for those who have turned from struggling family relationships to create and build family from friends and loved ones, the family that you surround with is how you build yourself into the person God needs you to be at just the right time and place that it's needed. Because God needs you to be the herald of your own story, so that we can all be the herald of God's story. As our modern herald James Baldwin said, love takes off the masks. Family is what allows us to take off masks of expectation so that we can be open enough to know where we are needed and wanted and divinely inspired to be. To the parents of this holy family, we have a collection of stories on how to respond to divine news, but more importantly, how to build a life that supports the bigger needs of creation. We do that by being caregivers, by readying ourselves for the newness that needs to come into the world, needs to be birthed by our agreement and consent. Today, this week of Advent in a day, we make ourselves ready, whether or not we feel ready, because today is the day. And no matter how unprepared we might feel, God will be born today. So let the masks fall. Be open in dream and in vision, or through the words of our fellow beings. Life will change once more. Peace and hope, joy and love will pave the way for divinity and truth, and maybe make some room for a donkey too. Amen.
This has been the weekly worship from the United Church of Christ of Hummelstown. No matter who you are, or where you are, on life's journey, you are welcome here. Join us online or in person, at 104 East Main Street in Hummelstown, Sundays at 10:30 a.m. Thank you for listening today. We look forward to your fellowship.